Check 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2. Check. Test test. Check 1. Check 1.
Hey there.
Hi, Elia. Elia, how do you say your name?
Elia.
Elia. Hi. I sent you a Facebook Messenger message. Tried to contact you before now because I didn't have your email or phone number. This is Dan.
Hello, Dan.
Just so you can see.
Hi.
Hi.
What do you need? What did you need from me?
Do you have a presentation that you need to put up?
Oh, no, I don't, because I've never talked about this before, and it's totally a lab.
Okay. All right. I just want to make sure if you had something you needed to share that I could allow you to share your screen. Do you have
Thank
anything?
you.
No, nothing. Okay.
What were you about to ask? I'm sorry.
No, you just answered my question. Okay, cool.
Okay, great.
Do you want this to be conversational? Do you want people asking questions on Zoom and in person?
Let's see. What methods do you have available? Can the questions run in a banner?
People can ask questions in the chat if they want. We don't have a banner, no.
Okay, I can't track a chat and be present to the conversation. So,
right.
Normally I invite questions all the time, but in this instance, I think I will wait and let people know when I'm open to questions.
Okay.
All right. Like I said, I haven't ever tried to talk about this before.
Okay. All right. So I'm gonna make sure everybody is muted then while you speak, and then when you're ready for questions, just put it out there. And
I will do that. And that will be at various points. It won't just be at the end.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Cool.
Thanks, Dan. Okay.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Check two. Check two. Check two. Test 2. Check. 1 2 1 2.
Do you need a level on me?
You sound great.
Okay, great. Oops.
Just so you know, Elia, we normally start a few minutes late because people come in late. This was what we call Richmond time.
Got it. It's the weekend.
It's the weekend, yeah. All right. So we start with a little introduction and a meditation before we get to the presentation.
Great.
All right.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hear the bike?
Yes.
Are we live?
Yep.
Okay.
Morning, Thomas.
Hello, Lindley.
How you doing?
Good. We'll get started in a minute here, and let us get organized a little bit. We're live now, please.
Good morning. If everybody could have a seat, that would be awesome. I'm Martha Mullen, and I'm on the steering committee. Tom is in Colombia. He sends his greetings. And Isabel. And Mercury is in retrograde, so we're getting started a little bit late, but it's all good. Just wanted to welcome everyone to the Richmond chapter of IONS. And it is a community group of the Institute of Noetic Science, which was started by the astronaut Edgar Mitchell when he had a unity consciousness experience on his way back from the moon. And since then, we've been enjoying metaphysical topics. I think we're one of the oldest chapters, about 27 or 28 years. And today we are welcoming Elia Wise, but before I introduce her, and I had her book on, I hope it didn't get mixed in with everything else. I had Elia Wise book sitting on the credenza here. So if I could have that back. Bill, did you take Elia Wise book off the credenza? Okay. I was afraid that was going to happen. It had my notes in it. Is it over there somewhere? Elia Wise book? Did Terry walk off with it? Maybe? Could somebody go ask Terry to bring my book back? That would be awesome. Well, anyway, let me move on here. We have a book exchange. There are a bunch of books in the back that please take a look at those. And then I'd also like to bring to your attention the spiritual practice series, Sanctuary of Earth. And their next meeting is hosting Stephanie Whitehead, who is a Reiki master certified in animal Reiki. And she's speaking on signs and synchronicities, recognizing them and using them to help in your life. So that will be sent out to everyone via the email link. And if you'd like to be added to that list, please add your email on the list at the table just as you come in the door. And I would like to introduce our speaker today, Elia Wise, and she is the author of Letters to Earth, which is a wonderful book that I've been reading. And Tom brought to my attention months ago, and she has a kind of co-consciousness of what I would call super consciousness of both herself, but also collective consciousness into the divine mind. And she has, the Letters to Earth is a book about kind of why we're here and what's going on a deeper level. And today she'll be speaking about her experiences during COVID when, as she spoke with people on the phone and in professional forums and via YouTube, doing readings and discussions and channeling about what she noticed was appearing to be true as opposed to actual spiritual truth. And we will enjoy hearing her discuss that further today. So if we could just take a minute and kind of center ourselves and take some deep breaths. And let go of everything that doesn't serve us. And hold fast to that which is good, kind, and compassionate. And let us retain a sense of compassion for ourselves. Just noticing and not judging. And let us also then extend that compassion to everyone, other selves, across the room, across the city, across the nation, across the oceans, with particularly mindfulness of the people in Maui and Ukraine and Niger, across the world, throughout all the meridians. Hold the earth, our beautiful blue pearl, in our hearts with all the loving kindness and compassion in the heart of God. And open your heart center and allow divine love to pour in. Amen.
So, Elia, would you like to begin your presentation?
Good morning, everyone. I want to let you know, and thank you for inviting me to be here with you. I want to let you know that this is a lab for me. This is an experiment. I have not previously attempted to talk about what we're going to be engaging with this morning. I want first to say thank you for the introduction, because the description of what I'm doing here in terms of consciousness was the best I've ever experienced. It helped me understand what I'm doing here. But the description of what I do on a daily basis, I'd like to correct. I don't channel and I don't do readings. I am a teacher. And I don't do things publicly for many, many years. After I wrote Letter to Earth, I taught publicly for about 1.5 to 2 years, book tours and other things and I realized that the more effective I was and the more articulate I was at communicating my understanding, the more people thought they knew what they only knew about. And it put me into quite a quandary, because I wanted to share, I wanted to contribute, but the thing I value most and understand most deeply is that each and every person has to invent the universe through the lens that is uniquely theirs. And in that way, that individual, each of us as individuals, become God. We become the creators of the universe. We recreate and co-create the universe. So, I decided that the best way I could contribute would be to work one-to-one. That way I could respond to each individual as they were creating their own understanding. And that's what I've been doing for these many years. But COVID, as was, hello? I'm sorry, are we still here?
You're good.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
My screen changed radically. All right.
Oh, I just turned our screen off because people are walking around. I don't want to distract you.
I appreciate that.
Okay.
So it is a bit like talking into a void. During COVID, I had a period of time where, as all of us did, I was fortunately in good health, but alone in my own space. And so I decided to survey and study what was going on in the popular conversation about metaphysics and consciousness and spirituality. And it was fascinating. And I was a bit alarmed. And it's what motivated me to, and it's probably what motivated Tom to call me at the time that he did. And here we are. So I am a person who, like some people like Sudoku, I like to see if it's possible for me to figure out the puzzle of how to explain the universe in language. In language that is not just poetry, not to reduce poetry, but in language that has concrete capacities as well as the poetic. That's my Sudoku. And the way I understand the universe is through direct experience. And I did have a mentor when I was very young, but she was not at all verbal. She did not explain things. She created experiences for me. And in those experiences, I got seeds that it would take me many, many years to be able to explain. And she always said to me when I said, what was that? Well, how did that happen? And she would say, well, I don't explain things. It's your job to explain it. And I took her very earnestly that it was my job to explain it. And so that's what I set about doing. And now that I'm broaching the topics we're going to talk about today, I want to tell you that I couldn't have put these things in Letter to Earth because there wasn't language. I barely have language now. That's why I say this is an experiment. I didn't have language at the time, and I felt that I had gone as far in Letter to Earth as was useful to go. And so it was just the stopping point. Now we have to go further. And we have to go further with the understanding that there's a point at which the universe is not a reflection. I know as above, so below, and that is true, but at different levels of abstraction. So when you want a parking space and you try to use magnetism to get your parking space, I cringe. Not you personally, but when I hear of all the people who were trying to sell magnetism as a way to get the life you want, as a way to materialize abundance and the things that you believe you should have. If you are in your core, if you are inventing the universe as you conceive it, step by step, editing and correcting yourself without hubris and without shame when you're wrong, without judgment about your own experiential testing, if you are just going for the truth of yourself, that will open everything and your magnetism will increase, increase, increase. Magnetism is not spiritual materialism to grab and try to use like a bank account or credit card or an inside track on consciousness to manifest something that you're trying to manifest. Your own truth to your own being is your strongest magnetic pull. It will pull exactly what you need to manifest. If you trump that with your will and use your ability to manifest to get something, you'll probably get the something. It's a different level of application, but what it as above, so below, it's just a different level of application. But if you understand that you're doing a bigger thing, that your magnetism exists so that you can draw the whole of creation into your consciousness in the order and sequencing that it is meant for you, your unique co-creation and recreation of the universe as yourself, then your magnetism will bring you exactly what you need next. And if it's not a larger house, or I don't want to be that trite, if it's not that your knee that doesn't function well, what can you do to magnetize in healing? that's not the way magnetism really works. The way it really works is you feel for who might be the healer that you're exposed to, or you invite that the healer that might be able to assist you, or that the healer in an energetic direction that might be able to assist you will become an active part of your consciousness. And that may be someone you go to for any one of the 6,000 different methodologies for healing that have come into the spiritual marketplace. It may be true that there is one in any one of those 6,000 mediums of healing that is the one that will align with you, but the way you will find that being is by going into yourself for that felt sense of where you belong, for that instinctive or that inspired sense of the being with whom you connect best. When you go in and you say, I love Feldenkrais. Well, I love Feldenkrais too. And Feldenkrais could do it like no one else. But all the people who are trained in Feldenkrais don't necessarily have an alignment with you or with the frequency that you're in that has connection to what will heal your knee. So what I'm going to be doing in this presentation, I guess it's not planned. It couldn't be planned. I've never tried to talk about it before. So what I'm going to be doing is trying to show you the universe from a different angle. It's as foreign in some ways, just in some ways, to what is the popular conversation as it is to consider that within most of our lifetimes, within the next 5 years, we are likely to engage with beings who come from a larger system than ourselves. Well, we all come from the same system, but who manifest in other realms of experience. We are likely to engage with them, and we will be exposed to things and ideas that are very different, no matter what foundation we think we've laid by reading the books and coming to wonderful meetings and discussions. It will be different. In the same way, do you know the term huga? It's a Swedish term, huga. It defines what we would call sort of cozy. It's represented in our thinking by hot chocolate with a marshmallow floating and a homemade Danish that's still warm and a fire going. And it's a word that describes a phenomena that the Swedish people have in their bones. And their bones live in a context of snow and vast open spaces in their countryside, not like American countryside or South American countryside, but their own countryside in which here and there in the expanse of white are red houses, the blood, the lifeline that humans are living in that beauty, in that expanse. And in that context, huga means something we don't get because we are not in that context. The same will be true when we get to communicate and to interact with beings that are not living in our daily system. And the same is true with some of what I want to offer to you today. Okay. So I want to, believe me, if I were talking about anything I've talked about before, we'd have slides and it would be, but okay, I have to feel the energy here, and I'm not in the room live with you to see how to move into this. Okay. Okay. All right. So when I work with people one-to-one, I do it like a librarian. Because I already know the Dewey Decimal or the filing system or the way things are stacked in our library, that metaphor being, I already know the ideas and the archetypes that make up consciousness. Because of that, when somebody comes to me and says they want to talk about something or they have a question, I know exactly how to sort of follow that into the right place in the stacks. How do they think? They're approaching their question in a unique way that can only come through their unique lens, through which they will eventually create the entire universe as their own understanding. So that when we are speaking as a group like this, I'm going to share ideas, and hopefully collectively they will paint a picture that you will expand yourselves with or not, as you choose. So let's start with the idea that we're all one. And let's start with the idea that that interfaces with the idea of time. The universe and the world of spirit, and that's what I'm hoping to reveal to you more about the world of spirit, has no time, but time is available. It just is not run with time. Time is an option on the menu. You can sign into time by going into a particular set of frequencies and by speeds, basically. And that's how time can be past or present or future if you're in the world of spirit. It's how someone who is a medium or a psychic, which I am not, so I cannot represent it as fully as they could, but it's how it is possible to go back in time, even to have a déjà vu experience, or go forward in time to see what's about to happen. Where we are now, in terms of consciousness and what it means to be one, is not just the heart space of we're all one, we have compassion, we understand the human condition. That's so important. But let me tell you, we were all one in the beginning. We were all at the start of the experience we are in now called Earth and humanity. No one is new. People are having new experiences, new incarnations, but we were all in this together in the very beginning. We were one in the beginning, before this Earth and this human experience could be manifest. And I'm going to invite you, if you don't mind, if you've washed your face enough that you feel comfortable, or you're not wearing your pajamas, or you're not naked, I'm going to invite you to show your face, because it is not easy to talk to a black space. So if you are here and in any way, I invite you to share your face. I need to connect with you. Okay, these are not disembodied thoughts. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Okay, so we were all one to begin with. Now, when I say we were all one to begin with, imagine that we are a group, just in our current situation. Here we are, we're a group, and we want to create something that will enable each and every one of us to fulfill our creative idea for creating this thing. Each of us has we want to create something that allows each and every one of us to fully express our being and to have our being reflected back to us. So we choose to manifest, to make visible and manifest a world. We all, not the faces we see here, because that's a different generation of it, but we all collectively created this earth. We had to, in a sense, sit in a kind of communion or a connection. And in that sitting, none of these words are right, but in that sitting, we had to each conceive of ourselves as truly as we could, and our purpose for wanting to be part of this experiment. And until the point where each person was knowing themselves and conceiving of what they wanted to experience and express in this shared experiment, until each person did that in relation to themselves in a way that allowed every other person to do that in relation to themselves. Nothing could manifest. It's the essential meaning of consensus. Consensus is not a compromise or a negotiation. Consensus is when each one of us grows to include every other one of us without having to give up ourselves. So that means we have to grow ourselves to be able to include each other. And that is the process from which we began on this planet as this humanity. That is so different than what everyone has sort of talked around, because it's very hard to know that. So if you consider that we were all one to begin with, we are all one, and we will forever be all one. And what we are doing here is trying to manifest the one that we are. First of all, the one that you are, that I am, that each of us is. Because if we can fully manifest that one, we will include every what appears to be other. Because we will have conceived of ourself, expressed ourself, discovered ourself, come to know ourself as inclusive of all other beings. That's how we started creating this system. And that's how we live in this system. So it appears to be so imperfect, but it was perfect to begin with. And it is working its way to individual and collective oneness, perfection of its expression of oneness. I'm going to pause for a minute and ask Dan to open this up, because if you have any questions about this, it's not a popular idea, and it's not an idea that we can grasp from where we usually sit, although some of you may have heard this or seen this yourselves. But I want to open it up to see if anybody has anything they want to ask before I carry on.
Okay, so anybody on Zoom, put your hand up so we can get some kind of organization. And anybody, okay, we have somebody in the room here, Robert.
I think normally this question is approached in terms of the true self and the ego, and it's recommended that the ego be, in extreme terms, killed. Doesn't have to be thought of that way, but at least suppressed or overcome. Do you have any thoughts on the relationship between the true self you're talking about and the ego artificial persona that we construct?
Thank you. It's a wonderful question. And oh God, that's why I love to be in a live dialogue. Thank you so much. Okay. Yes. Let me say to you that the ego is not something to kill. It's something to engage with. To be in possession of yourself is to be, as a higher being, in possession of your ego. Your ego is needed because your ego is the force. It is the will. It is the free will. If not, we just surrender. We are co-creating. The ego is a vital and necessary force, but how does it cooperate? Because you need an ego to manifest, and you need an ego to assess. You need an ego to make experiments and test your theories, and you need an ego to assume anything like that it's possible to love. It's a natural state to love. But if you are born into a world that struggles with it in every teenage relationship you ever had, and every older relationship you had is love in one moment and then chaos in the next, it's just hard to know these things without an ego. You need an ego to drive you forward, to willfully seek to know. And then you need a higher self to be in possession of that ego, because that ego knows. You only have to watch yourself make how many mistakes in love, in life, to know that your ego is not perfect. Okay. Your ego does not get it. Okay. Why is everybody bumping into each other? And that is what tells you there must be something bigger. There must be something higher. And so we reach to understand ourselves better, why we bump into things and why people bump into us. And when we reach higher, we connect with the true, well, it's all our true self. We connect with more of ourself. We start to include higher octaves of self, what we sort of think of as our spirit or our higher self. And when we do that, we start to establish a higher ground of being. We get to know ourselves more and more at that higher level. We establish more and more of a higher ground of being. Our identity starts to stand in and on that higher ground of being more and more, and we become in possession of ourselves. We have our egos as a driving force, as something to make our creativity move and take risks, and is why it's so important to be expressed. If we didn't have that ego, it wouldn't be so important to be expressed. Why do I care about sitting here with all this passion trying to tell you this? It's because I'm in possession of an ego, and my ego is driven to share with you something exquisite that I have seen and that I know. And so that is what I can say to you. Please tell me your name, because you've inspired me to share that.
Robert.
Thank you, Robert.
All right, Wilma, you unmute yourself. Wilma, can you have your hand up?
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I'm looking up in. Okay, go ahead.
All right. We have another lady here in our room. We'll go there.
Okay. Please tell me who you are.
My name's Deborah.
Hi, Deborah.
I'm wondering if we're open to other opinions.
Are you asking me directly? Am I open to other opinions, or are you asking, are we collectively?
Let me not be so vague. My personal opinion is that ego is really useful when you're a kid because it helps you survive and it helps you find your way. When I was in my 20s, I told my ego to sit down and shut up. It had no role to play in my life. My life is run by my beingness, not my ego. My feeling about the ego is it's hungry. The dynamic of it is that it's hungry and it always wants to be fed. And you could feed the entire universe to it and it would still say, I'm still hungry, give me more. So the ego in my world is not as true and not as effective and not as valuable a guide as my beingness.
Oh, I so can hear you, but I just want to say to you, is that a reason to make it go sit in the corner? I have to ask you.
It is.
Okay, then that is your choice. I want to offer to you, like you're saying, you want to offer to me another
Okay, go ahead.
way of viewing, another way.
for it.
Okay, I want to offer to you that we include everything. Yes, it might take you 50 years to stop having your mind run or your ego float around. So what
There's
you think
process in that.
do you think there's a hurry? Do you think you can make your becomingness any faster, any different? Do you think that by saying to your ego, it's like sitting in meditation to still your mind. You want to still your ego. You want to quiet it. You want to tell it to sit down and shut up. That's a hard way to talk to yourself. That's a hard way to talk to any part of yourself. Okay.
That's not been my experience.
Okay. I'm
It's
offering
not
you.
been my experience. In fact, one of the first things I learned regarding energy was vibration. I learned that in my early 20s. And then I ran across a bit of information that said every human being has 3 non-physical guides. And I thought, well, let me go check the vibration of my guides. It was disgusting, and I fired them. And about
Okay.
30 years later, I was working with an energy practitioner, and I confessed that because it sounds so egotistical, but whatever, I confessed it. And she said, no, wait, let me check that. And she said, yes, by golly, you fired them, and they deserved to be fired.
I want to say to
So
you,
this
the
is
only,
my path. It's not everybody else's. It's
no,
just
you're
another point of view.
okay. And what I can't do here is a private session.
I'm
And
not
so
after
I
that.
thank you for sharing your
Thank
opinion.
you.
And I hope you're open to hearing others.
Of course I am.
Okay.
And I might add something here. This is Dan. That maybe the definition of ego is the issue.
We're doing it.
Yeah.
Happening. We're demonstrating it.
Yeah.
Now we have choices. We're doing it right now, Dan. You're absolutely right. This is it. And so what we have to do is, can we include this moment? Can we be here and do this? Hi.
That's Wilma, you can unmute yourself now. You can stop waving and unmute. You're muted. You're muted. Wilma, you're muted. I can't unmute you. You have to unmute yourself.
Okay, I could not unmute. I am so sorry. So this must be the right moment to say this. I heard one time a sentence from somebody, and this fits to me. I hope you like this sentence. Your ego is fine as long as you center it in the divine.
Oh, yes. Thank you.
Thank you for letting me share this. That was all.
Oh, perfect. I mean, it's all perfect. Everybody's opinion is perfect, but you have aligned with what I know. And so I call that perfect. Thank you.
It's the perfect sentence. And I don't get credit for this. It is Anne Francis at Unity who said this sentence in a sermon. And I walked over to her and I said, if you would not have said anything else, I said, you will be known to me as the person who brought that sentence on earth.
Beautiful. And thank you and thank Anne.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. So we have another question here from the room.
Hi, my name is Daisy Kataracha Luminua.
Wow.
I have I don't have a question. I just have a perspective on the ego that I was taught, and that ego stands for epigenetic overlay, and that's a chemical sheath that surrounds our cells and our atoms and our DNA, and that when we hear the New Age movement that we should kill our ego. So from when I learned about what ego is, when we learn about the structure of our energy fields, which is very important to learn about it so that we can consciously direct the energies. So I learned that the ego is part of our mental body structure, right? And that we should not kill it. We should just transmute the distortions within the ego, because there is that chemical a sheath that is surrounded by a thing called jarosh, which is a distorted Shona light that keeps us from seeing the truth, right? It cuts off right on the mantle, which is dimension 3. It cuts off the energy flow and affects our ego that is there to it's useful. It's our mental body. So when don't we go mind, body, spirit, heal your mind, and then your body, and then you can reach your spirit. So I just had something. There's a lot more, but I just wanted to share. This is what I've learned. So that when the new age love, light, and clueless that we call in my school, that we need to learn the structure first of the energy field so that we understand how it works. So my perspective is that we should not kill the ego, but heal or transmute the distortions around it so that we can see the truth, that we connect with the at one moment with source.
I hear you.
Keeps
I hear you.
going.
Thank you, Daisy. So let me respond to that. I want to respond by saying, I don't know if there's anybody else participating here today or that will be listening at any point in the future who would approach this the way Daisy is attracted to approach it, because for her, it's really interesting to see this in sort of scientific terms and create layers and relationships that you can set down as this is the way it works. And that's how it works for Daisy. And so Daisy grows by doing that. The person who was before her grows by denying the ego. Maybe 4 years from now, she'll embrace the ego. Maybe she'll never embrace the ego. These are systems. These systems are not relevant. If they were, they're only relevant to the person who's using them or the people who decide to use them as a way to talk to each other, like the formation of language. The reason I say to you they're not relevant is just consider this. How egalitarian would the one be, the consciousness of all that is, would spirituality be if you had to be able to think in a certain system or you couldn't get it? If you had to understand a sheath, it works for Daisy to hear the concept of a sheath. It works for the person who's teaching her to have formulated the concept of a sheath of distortion. But do we all need to know about a sheath of distortion? It's a construction. All these ways we talk about consciousness, they are constructions. I don't put them down. Any construction that you make that allows you to talk about consciousness without being limited, that allows you to keep going and knowing directly. If you have a construction like that, you're in a construction of enlightenment because it just keeps going until it includes everything. But if you have to be educated, if you have to be able to afford to attend classes, if you have to do anything that separates you from every other being on the planet to be able to get conscious, then you're in a system. And you've just chosen to use that system because you already are the system of your consciousness. You already are the profound embodiment of all that is. And of course, we all want to talk to each other. And so we make up systems to talk to each other. The person who makes up the system probably gets the most out of it. The people who come and learn the system or borrow the system or try to apply the system go as far as they can. Okay, anybody else have a question or a contribution they want to make to this discussion?
Yeah, we have a couple more questions in the room.
Okay, let's go for it. Yeah, it's no small.
And if anybody does want to ask a question on Zoom, please put your electronic hand up so I can see it. Thanks.
I'm going to take just a few more because I want to move on. Although truthfully, we could talk about this for a very long time because it's disorienting in some way to have this conversation. And it's exciting for the few of you who have already, tapped something similar. So we could talk about it forever, and I'm sure we will at some level. Okay, please go ahead.
Hi, Elia. My name is Martha.
Hi, Martha.
My ego wants to apologize that I misread the flyer that Tom wrote that you do tarot readings and psychic channeling. So sorry about that.
That's okay.
But I'm curious. are you familiar with the law of one? And what do you think about the Ra group and their ego and their telepathic mind? Just curious, your thoughts on that.
Okay. When I answer that, I'm going to answer it as if you had asked me about every group there is. Okay. And that is, every group has a truth. Every group has a seed wisdom. Some burn out because they have some limitations, but most people so venerate the system the system that excites them and awakens them. It becomes an elevated system. And so the assumption is by most people that they are not yet that, or that they are not yet equal to that, when the truth is they will never be that, because they can only be themselves. So anyone can use any system as far as it grows them. And when it stops growing them, they need to allow that the part of them that is unique and educative will carry on from that point. So we collect from all over wisdoms. Who was it who was in the upper left-hand corner who told me the thing that Francis said? I'm sorry, I forgot. Anne. She collected that, and it was an axial value for her. It was such a truth that enabled her to resonate all the way around it in 360 degrees, to know something and thereby to know more of herself. So when you ask me about the Ra, I wouldn't think it was my position to say anything about the Ra or any other group in terms of judgmentally or qualitatively or quantitatively, because somebody made it up. And they made it up from the desire inside themselves to do one of two things: have power over other people, or have the power within themselves that they could share. So it has potential in it, and we use it, any one of these systems, as far as it takes us. Okay, may I invite you?
One more? One more
One
from the room? Okay.
Yeah.
Al?
Hi, Elia.
Hi.
My name is Albert,
Hi, Al.
and I fancy myself to be a storyteller. So I will say how I learned to deal with that voice that we call ego. 30 some odd years ago, I used to have to take my two young sons, to my office when daycare wasn't available. My younger son would always use the occasion of me being on the phone with an important client to interrupt and say, "Daddy, daddy, 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 I need you right now." And what I learned to do was to say, "Luke, I'm on a very important phone call that has to do with our being able to have food and a home." I said, "When I'm finished with this, you will have my full devoted attention." And he would invariably say, "Okay, Daddy." That taught me how to deal with that voice in a loving way, in a calm way, so that, and Luke, as well as that voice, learned that I would be true to my word and say, when I'm finished with what I'm doing now, because it's very important to us, that we will have this conversation. So I just offer that. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you. Lucky Luke. Wow. Isn't it fascinating how talking about ego gets all of our egos right to the fore? Okay. So, we got to ego really as an aspect of the idea that I wanted to share, being we are all one. We are already all one. We started all one. We couldn't have created our collective experience in a manifest way unless we could manifest in relation to all other beings who were going to be in this experiment. The fact that it's complicated when you're in time does not mean that it's failing. The fact that we are up against climate because we have been ignorant in certain areas, we've been focused on ourselves in ways that have not included the earth sufficiently. We have thought of ourselves as the users of our context instead of the creators of our context. When you know that we were one in the beginning, and you know that we can only be one, it's only if you are, and this is easy for me to say, because in this particular lifetime, by some grace, I'm conscious. But if we are in a lifetime where we're going to bump up against everything all the time, conscious or not, I still bump up against everything. I still don't know what I don't know. If we are in a lifetime where we observe all the people that seem to be at odds with us, or the things that people are doing there, well, look, we have Trump in the United States right now. We have autocratic efforts around the world. When we see these kinds of polarities and resistances, we could think we're not one. And that very thinking keeps us in our polarities and resistances. So we have to realize that Trump is Luke, and he needs attention. And the attention he needs is from himself at a higher level. And no matter how many of us try to placate anyone else, the only satisfaction that's really going to come is when we know we are sourcing all that is from within ourselves. Okay. Let me take a second here to see where we go next. Okay. I want to invite you to conceive of the world of spirit in another way, or in a way I can offer. Might be not another way to you, but to experiment with a way of understanding the world of spirit. I hold that each one of us here in the world, what we really are seeking is to be received. We say we want to be loved. Of course, what that really means is we want to be received. We want what we know we are, the goodness inside of us, the imperfection inside of us, the child inside of us, the wise one inside of us. We want all that to be received by others, to be just fine as it is. Okay. Imagine you're opening a door and you're walking into the realm of spirit. You're leaving your body behind, just because that's how we usually think we get there. But let's just say that we're walking through a door into the world of spirit. You have no bills. You do not have to have food in your refrigerator. Nobody hates you. You never did wrong by anybody. Nobody ever did wrong by you. You are not inadequate in any way. Any mistreatment that has come to you in your life through childhood or otherwise has no impact on you. Any of the burdens of your previous experience, those burdens are gone. Any of the self-doubt, the shame for things you may have done, All of that's gone. And you are in a state of being received as your true being and knowing that you are recognized, that you are seen, that you are valued. And all that went before has no weight in judgment. If that's the world of spirit, we can understand why the world we're in now feels hard and foreign and why we reach for spirit, because we all want that experience. And when we move into that experience, whether you do it in a meditation, in a chant, in a moment that you can't even explain why, but you were looking at a watermelon and you were one with all things. In any moment that we're one with all things, that's what we're experiencing. And when people have near-death experiences, that's what they're experiencing. But we call it love, because we're in a system that has so much contrast. We call it love. It's another thing. It's a thing of totally free, totally received, totally in the fullness of the truth of your being and recognized. When people who have near-death experiences talk about you will go through a life review. This is one of the concepts. I remember I told you what I did for all through COVID is I watched a YouTube and I read things and I listened to things and what do people think? So people think that they go through a life review and it's described as you will have to feel everything you ever did to anyone, like this is punishment. Like this is punishment. You're going to be punished by being lashed for every emotional or psychological lash that came out of you. Oh my goodness, that's creating the universe and spirit in our own image of the way we treat each other and the duality and the resentment. In that state of being loved and received, we call it loved, but okay, in that state of being fully expressed and received, no weight, no judgment, nothing from the past limits your experience of the essence of yourself and the beauty of that essence. And that is recognized and received and seen. In that state, just knowing that another being that you knew on the earth ever hurt for anything, whether you did it or not, is a momentary heartbreak and compassion for the earth, for that person. And you feel it because you're in a state of no blame, but of embrace, love, freedom. And in that freedom, you want all beings to know that freedom. And so anything that limits anyone, or that you may have contributed to that limits anyone, is known to you. But you don't feel it like a lash. It doesn't come back and make you suffer it. Just the fact that it even happens and that the earth is going through so much, people give so much of themselves to live a lifetime. The feeling that you have for that is such appreciation for the person who's still in it, that you're sorry you have ever contributed anything other to that person's life and experience. But we only have a certain language to talk about it. And so we talk about, you'll go through a life review, you'll see everything you ever did, and you'll feel whatever you did to other people. That is so much a human construct. That is so much a dualistic and judgment, Puritan and Catholic kind of idea. So for any of you who are recovering Catholics, you would know how much you've had to fight your way out of the box of that kind of guilt or those kinds of ideas. The same is true when you enter the realm of spirit. It will not play out anything like it is being described here, because it is being described by people who came back and are using the models and the archetypes of the world to try to tell you about something that they didn't fully embody, but they experienced. They didn't live in the white countryside in the red house to know what hygge really is, but they understand it as a concept. Okay. All right. So all of what I'm trying to do here today, it's an experiment, because I have to ask myself, does this do any good? What contribution does this make? And maybe on the bottom line, the only contribution it will make is that it busts up a foundation we're laying that's like the beginning of Christianity. It has taken us 2,000 years to begin to question some of the tenets of Christianity. We are a spiritual community because we are seeking something more true and greater and more inclusive and less dogmatic. Yet we are creating new Christianities, new religions, new systems that are equally limiting. And so to try to talk to anyone about this, all I can do is put it out there and see if it can be heard and if it can make a difference, and if having a larger perspective can keep us from the spiritual materialism of consciousness, from building new spiritual materialism around New Age consciousness, ancient consciousness. I mean, all of those systems are dying out because we're ready for something else, something that lives in the moment, that is experienced through our own being, that's harder to talk about. And because we desperately want community in a world that is so disjointed, where people are, it's just hard. Earth is hard. Okay, it isn't always hard. It can be exquisite, and it's because we know that we just keep moving on. Okay. But because we want community, and because we want to be received, we are forming this new spiritual consensus around some ideas that are very limiting. So I just invite you to examine any idea you buy that literally had to be bought. Any idea you buy that is a system you have to sign up for, join to understand. Instead, I invite you to ask yourself, what is true about that for me? And why do I understand things best if they come through a poetic frame, or a scientific frame, or a biological frame? And there's a good reason for that. It's because who you are as a being will see the whole universe through that frame. So you naturally want to collect things that speak in that language, that are in the language of how the body works, or the strata of the stages of our being, or how childhood development works, because we're all affected by all of these things, but we will only really grow through the lens that is ours to grow through. We borrow things from psychology, we borrow things from the Buddhists, we borrow things from the ancient Chinese wisdom and the Tao and the runes and you name it. There are pieces that are valuable to each of us in any of them. But you have to collect them and put them together your way if you want momentum to actually have the universe unfold to you. You have to get some momentum going, and it comes from the power of your ego, being in possession of that. knowing that balance with higher self so that you are driven, so that you do want to know, so that you do ask the question and observe to see if the universe supports your theory or hypothesis of the answer. That's what the challenge is. And if your goal is to be there in that, I've mastered it all, I've studied it all, I've learned it all, I don't know anybody who gets there that way, but I know people who get progressed enormously by study and by training and by teachers who eventually that teacher doesn't work for them. Good. Good. Okay. I can address the idea that Earth is a school and we're here to learn lessons. And you can probably guess that I have a very similar opinion to the, or understanding, to the fact that you'll be punished for in the way that you may have punished anyone else. This is not a school and we are not in lessons. Before we came, we wanted to know something. We wanted to discover something. We are creators. We wanted to explore something. We wanted to know if something was possible or if something worked or how we would look if we were manifest. And I mean, look, I mean, as a whole being. What would we experience? What does God experience as the creator of all that is? Well, if you create yourself and it includes all that is, you will know God in ways that you could not previously imagine. So you have designed a purpose to be here, to do a thing that you're able to do because you are a God, a creator. You are endowed with the freedom to do that. And so you are here to teach yourself what you came to learn. You're not here to be taught lessons by a higher system and by a God that wants you to perform, or even a higher self that wants you to learn that lesson. That's so putting the power of being outside yourself. That's so punishing. That's so undervaluing of your own being. Is this a school? Well, if there was something you wanted to learn, then you came to discover it, to teach it to yourself through your experience. The questions you ask, the relationships you form, the systems you engage with are all connected specifically to your purpose. And sometimes they're the wrong bus. And if they're the wrong bus, it's because that is something you had to discover to get on the right bus to further your purpose. So if you internalize authority in that way, that does not mean you discredit all other authorities or you devalue any other authority. But if you internalize the authority and can conceive of yourself as a creator, then you begin to gain magnetism and momentum. And you are going to more and more experience that to be true. And your dialogue with the universe becomes more dynamic so that your feedback comes from everywhere as you need it more effectively. So that was one of the ideas that concerned me, that I saw all over the popular spiritual conversation. Well, did you get the lesson? I got the lesson from that. Well, who was the teacher? And how many of us think of going to school every day, getting up at 6 or 6:30 or 5:30 or 7 o'clock in the morning, in the dark every morning as a kid, some of us in snow? How many of us think of school as something that was always fun or that we always wanted to do? And how many of us as parents have thought of school as I'm not sure they're expanding my child in this way. I think they may be limiting my child in this way, but it's part of the social system. It's part of our collective structure, and we have to have a base of common knowledge. So that is the idea, the big idea of school and lessons. I have one more I'll share with you, and then I'll invite questions. The Akashic records. There's a lot of reference to the Akashic record. The Akashic record is not a book or a library. It is that when we all began together, and we all began with a purpose of what we were going to realize, what we were setting out to make real. And we couldn't even start to shape a manifested earth and a human condition until we all could coexist in our intents and purposes for it. Therefore, anything we have done that we've already done that's manifest is a marker in that, you could say, goal or purpose that you as an individual set for yourself. And therefore, any being who is not in time is able to access what your purpose was, because they were there too. They were part of that collective think, that collective embody that became humanity and the earth. And any action you've taken sets a marker, and that marker after another marker after another marker enables things to be known in what we call an Akashic record. I want to open things up. If anybody has any questions, I'd like to hear them. I'd like to have the privilege, since I get to be the one talking here, to respond to them. And if not, I'll sort of, wrap up or talk about things you want to ask me to talk about. Yes.
Okay, we have a question in the room.
Hi, my name is Lori.
Hi, Lori.
The title of your topic, the title of your talk is Spiritual Misconceptions. And I'm just wondering if there are any that you intended to discuss or touch on that you have not touched on.
Oh, yes, but we could talk forever. Not because I think anything or everything is wrong, but because we conceive of things based on our experience, and our experience, unless it's universal, is going to shape our ideas in certain ways. So to add a perspective to any popularly held idea, it does show the ways in which there is misconception within that idea. No blame. You can't help if you've grown up and you've never seen snow, then or you don't know a lot about how snow comes to be. You can't help but have some limited ideas about it the first time you see it. You can't help but be surprised that it's cold or wet. Okay. Please.
Hi, my name is Carol.
Hi,
and I wonder if you could speak to how, in the way that you think about this, people have forgotten that they were one.
Wow. Sure. Thank you. When you leave a state where you're received fully and you're loved, love isn't even the right word. You are recognized. You are valued. You are what you are. You are exactly what you are, and every other being knows it. Okay. Imagine, can you remember back to the first time you were betrayed? Can you remember back to the first time as a child that you realize that an adult told you something that wasn't true and that you'd basically been played for a fool just because you were a kid. Any of those experiences, right from the earliest days, start to separate us from our knowing. There was a movie called Sex, Lies, and Videotape, and I remember there's a moment when McDowell is her name, Audie McDowell, I think it is, sits in a chair in the corner of her bedroom and says that she knows that somebody's lying to her. She just can feel it, even though they're denying it. Those kinds of moments where instead of being where you came from a place where everybody recognized you for all that you are. There was no question of your beingness, your goodness, your vastness, your creativity, your caring. When you come from that place and you walk into a situation where everybody has different ideas about everything because they're trying to manifest the wholeness of themselves, which forces you to have to manifest the wholeness of yourself. But when you're doing that, you can be undermined. You can doubt, and your doubts are part of your discoveries. Everybody doesn't have the exact same doubts. Everybody is not ashamed of the same things. Some people can look at their shadow straight on in certain areas and not in others. Some people can look at their mistakes with compassion. So the things that are your separations, when you ask, how did we lose our knowing? We didn't really lose it. We came to build it as a manifest thing. We are trying to manifest it, not just know it, but make it visible, make it reflective, make it informative, make it manifest. We're creators. So we are in that process. And the not knowing that each person has, or the separation from their knowing, is their process. It's like if you sign up for trig, which by the way, I never could do. But if you sign up to take a trig class, you go into that class not knowing. And you're going to have to learn bit by bit and figure things out. And in the end, you will understand something of trig. And if that is a doorway for you, you will become masterful in trig. But the only way is to go in with certain areas of not knowing every time you want to expand. Okay, and I can't explain why it is this way. I can just observe that it is this way, that this is what resulted from all of us wanting to manifest in the same context, different things. Okay, please, I'd like to take your question. And I'm not watching the clock, so please, somebody just let me know if I should wrap it up. Okay.
Hi, my name is Sarah, and I want to thank you for coming today. And you've certainly given me some things to think about. One of the things that I liked of what you said was about time, because I've been just in this thing about what is time, and your explanation about the vibration and coming to a slower vibration and experiencing it more within a stream, that makes sense to me. That's something that makes sense. The other thing is about frames of reference. So we're all in a different frame of reference. And one teacher I have described it like a disco ball. So we're all one. We're all this disco ball with these little mirrors, and we're all a different mirror. So thank you, because that gives you, or at least for me, so much more opportunity for forgiving the little pieces of mirror, because everybody has their own, which is the frame of reference. But I don't know if you're familiar with A Course in Miracles, but a quote from A Course in Miracles came to me, and is it okay if I read it?
Yes. Is it very long?
Nope, it's real short.
Please
I
share
just have to.
I just have to pull it up. This comes from lesson 189. Simply do this. Be still and lay aside all thoughts of what you are and what God is, all concepts you have learned about the world, all images you hold about yourself. Empty your mind of everything it thinks is either true or false, or good or bad, of every thought it judges worthy, and all the ideas of which it is ashamed. Hold on to nothing. Do not bring with you one thought the past has taught, nor one belief you ever learned before from anything. Forget this world, forget this course, and come with wholly empty hands unto your God. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's easy to understand why A Course of Miracles has so much magnetism. And in the same way that I am bringing you truth, and I am also bringing you a subjective being with an ego of her own, Course of Miracles brings you truth, and the same constructors of Course of Miracles divides things into love and fear. That is an ego making egoic contributions to the same work. We cannot present without presenting through a lens, and we cannot present without some aspects of subjective belief. And I think Course of Miracles is just beautiful. And I also find things in it that are very dualistic or binary and have some of the Puritan ethic. But what was just read is the heart and soul of what was intended with A Course of Miracles. It's gorgeous. It's all true to me from my lens. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Al has another thing he wants to share.
I'm back.
A story?
Yes, another story.
Good, please. I welcome your story.
Another story. I spent 40 years as an architect. Now I'm back into my artwork and authorship. One of the greatest things that I learned from my own creative process was the value of contrast and how much contrast dovetails into the expansion of my self-awareness. In every architecture project I ever did, and I did a lot of them, every piece of artwork and every writing I've ever done involves exploring solutions that don't work. That's been my experience. As I look at it applied to my life, I learned through the experience of separation what I am not. And I learned my oneness from learning what I am not. So my experience is to engage that which I am not so that I can more clearly define or expand, not define, because defining is limiting from my perspective. The more clearly I can expand on that which I am. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Wilma has her hand up again.
Hey there.
You still have to unmute yourself, dear. Can't do it?
She can't unmute.
Okay.
But at least the good thing is, thank you. Now I remember that your name is Wilma. Thank you. Can't hear you.
And we have
I
another
don't know
question.
how to instruct her on how to unmute. Okay.
Hello,
Hi.
I'm Donna.
Hi, Donna.
I just have one question. Who is that person behind you on your left shoulder? What is
This,
that? Yes, that.
that isn't she lovely?
Yeah.
I call her the spirit of offering.
Okay.
And oh, I get chills when I say it. She was created by an artist and brought to Minneapolis juried art fair.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as I saw her, I had to have her in my life. And lately, I've started to feel like she's preparation for the fact that we're going to be joined very soon by some beings who, when they appear, they will look like us, but to themselves, they don't look like us to each other. But when they appear to us, they will look like us. Lately, she has come to be spirit of offering that is coming into our world. But what she represented to me is how I feel.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like, I guess we all feel like we're not from this world, but I felt like I was not from this world and I had something to offer, the spirit of offering. And that is, I bought her when I was maybe 1980 something.
Wow. She's fascinating. She looks like a combination of Japanese and samurai and Native American. She's kind of a mixture. She's beautiful.
Lovely. I didn't know how to see that because I don't have that art background or that cultural background, but it's wonderful to hear that.
Mm-hmm. And colorful, very colorful. I like that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
I figured out again how to unmute. I did it. It's so challenging. And I just keep saying, that is when it is the right moment, Wilma. Don't worry about it. So I'm so sorry that I couldn't figure it out. I wanted to ask, so what did Jesus do for this world? What did he, did he accomplish what he wanted to do? Is this, I can't even compilate the question. It's like, was he successful in what the universe or what he did for this universe? Is that a good question?
Every question's a good question. It's not a question I can answer. You have to ask Jesus. You have to ask from within yourself. I can say to you that so many of us are inspired by Jesus, even though we don't really know at all who he is, what he was doing. Really, we have stories constructed from our archetypes in our context and from our inadequacies. So, however, the fact that a portion of humanity, a large portion of humanity, aspires to manifest those higher aspects of themselves is certainly a profound indication that a vast contribution was made.
Thank you.
Yes, I want to say one more thing. I suspect, the same way I suspect that Steve Jobs is rolling over in his grave when they make a pink and a lavender iPhone, okay? Or when they have, I look at things and I just go, oh, I'm so sorry. You know, in the same way, what we have done to Christianity,
yes,
what grew from Christianity to become Catholicism,
Yeah.
The absconding with the spiritual power of individuals in the name of a church. I am sure that yes, I can say I'm sure I'm getting it affirmed. I am sure that Jesus had to say, what have I done?
Yeah.
And yet I have not done that. I have stimulated that process. We all stimulate processes. There are people who will go away from what I'm saying here today who just think, who the hell does she think she is? And there are people who will go away and say something real happened.
Mm-hmm.
And then every interpretation possible. So when we take the risk of dropping anything in the water, it's like it's taking the risk of telling someone we love them and not knowing how they will respond.
Yeah.
You do it because you're here to do it. It is your truth. And so all we can say is we're talking about him. And when we're talking about him, we're in an elevated energy.
Yeah. So, and we're connected because of that. I hope we do it with love and with the right intent. That is the difference when we come from love. Thank you so much. How should we behave when we encounter these new beings?
If you can encounter new ideas right now, not just with me here or anywhere they're exposed, but if you can encounter new ideas with an open mind, not gathering information, but asking yourself to be informed, literally inform of any truth, to have any truth in what you are encountering, inform you, become a part of your form, that you be able to embody whatever measure of truth or whatever stimulation for truth is in what you are being offered, then you don't have to do anything to get ready.
Yeah.
Okay. We won't be ready, and we will be completely ready because we'll be asked to make systemic shifts in our thinking.
Yes.
Our archetypes will be moved, and everything we think from within the stories of those archetypes.
Because that's how we grew up.
Right. That's what we were fed. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. It all starts at home. There should be so much education about parenting, but we're not there yet. So I guess the only thing I can say to you is I do not believe that the introduction will happen in the United States. Because I do believe that the United States government will want to protect itself from the judgment that it has withheld information and controlled collective awareness, and it's easier for it to be introduced elsewhere. However, the beings who are going to join us are going to be as integrated as possible. They are going to have lived or served as spirit guides, and they will be as integrated as it is possible to be. And we will need them.
Yeah.
And because we need them now, look at Mali, look at Niger, just look at our world. Okay. Yeah. This hopefully is the last war, and we thought we'd already had the last war. So we will need them, and we will know we need them. And the challenge for them and for us is not to humble ourselves, but to equal ourselves to our God within. The challenge has always been, the challenge is not to humble yourself to God. It is to equal yourself to God, because the process is humbling enough.
Wow. So the sentence that comes to me is, don't come from fear, come from acceptance, and come from love.
You can come from love and come from fear. My first extraterrestrial encounter, both things were happening. I had to shut my eyes because I had to know what I knew and not let my eyes seeing something I had never seen before put me in fear or resistance or shut me down in any way.
Yeah.
We are not in a binary reality. It is not love or fear, even though I hear that again and again.
That's a good one then. That's why I had to say acceptance first, because I
Yes.
was going to say love, and then I heard myself say acceptance, and I
Yes.
was like, wow, that is so interesting.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
so we have to come from accepting any emotion we have, any feeling we have, and oh, this is the truth, and my hair is standing up. We have to come from the acceptance of every emotion and be honest about that emotion.
Yes. Yes. And I think that's allowance.
Yes,
because we don't
good word.
accept everything.
Yes.
We can't accept everything. Everything it may or may not be worthy of acceptance.
Yes.
Or we may or may not be ready. So therefore, we can't accept something we're not ready for. It will destabilize us.
Thank
We
you
have
so
to
much for
allow.
sharing.
Yeah,
Yes.
thank you.
Thank you, Wilma. We have two other hands up online. If we
Okay.
could take those two and then call it from there.
Okay.
So, Linda, you were first.
Yes, and I know how to unmute myself. Gosh, I raised my hand so long ago, I forgot exactly what I wanted to say, but I definitely am so grateful to you, Elia. When we first read your book together, my husband Robert and I, and decided to have a book group comprised of some folks from IONS, what really struck me was your sympathetic vibrational resonance. And what I have found in my long life is that those people who have something that resonates with me on a level that's beyond understanding are those that bring me what I need, whether it's an opportunity to look more closely at my opportunities for growth in a way that might be challenging, or in a wonderful way, as with my current relationship. With a man who's giving away so many books about ETs on the back table there. What I have learned is that staying open to those encounters, whether they're resistant or whether they're opportunity, has been, through the course of my life, the most thrilling fulfillment of what I think I'm doing here. And it's what spoke to me very clearly from a letter to Earth. And I wonder if you could say something a little bit more about sympathetic vibrational resonance. And my name is Linda.
Thank you, Linda.
Yeah.
Because I wrote a whole book about sympathetic vibrational magnetism. I mean, really, the book is about how we create reality and what we're doing here. Mm-hmm. But the fundamental concept for everything is sympathetic vibrational magnetism. I don't know how I could, in a minute or two that we have together here, talk about SVM or talk about sympathetic vibrational magnetism, because when I started this, I was talking about how you magnetize things in, and if you want a parking space, well, go for it, I mean, but it took me a book. It just took me a book. So forgive me. I'll tell you what, I can do a little soundbite, but I never, I try to resist doing anything canned. Okay. And believe me, this presentation is the least canned of anything I've ever done, but I will give you a soundbite. Okay. And the soundbite is that every thought, everything, every condition of every thought and condition of everything has its own vibration. And it has a frequency that you could hear. Everything else that vibrates at that frequency. Now remember, I went, so there's probably 40, 50, 100 frequencies in there. Okay. It wasn't a single frequency. But in that wave pattern, everything else that is resonant, that operates at the same frequency, becomes self-evident. If you are at this frequency, there is variability in there, and everything that's in the whole of the universe becomes self-evident. Do you notice it, pay attention to it, internalize it, question it? That's up to you. But you tune your radio dial, you choose your programming based on your frequency at any given time, and trying to control your frequency may give you a whole lot of something, but you'll be missing a whole lot of other things. So you have to trust yourself enough that being who you are in the sincerity of your being is going to put you in whatever frequency and vibration builds the foundation for the next one. And trying to shut out the world and sit in a cave and only resonate in meditation, well, that's great. But what happens when you have to leave the cave or go back into the world? Do you have a foundation to maintain and integrate those higher frequencies? So that was not a soundbite. That was really a response to you in the moment. But that is what I can say to you in brief.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Yeah.
Okay, and Tom, you got your hand up. There you go.
Yeah, thank you. And Elia, thank you for everything you said and help us think through. Regarding the entities who may come within the next 5 years, and of course we all know that there are entities already here and have been coming, but you're talking about something that people can't deny, because that will be so obvious. I'm thinking about what it is what their message will be, why they are coming, and what do you think of the possibility that they're coming to inform us that we're living in a computer simulation in this universe? That's certainly something that's been talked about by we humans, and particularly in science, and the possibility that this universe is based on information and computation, which is what a computer does, and perhaps we set it up ourselves so that we could experience it in some other way that we hadn't before. My own personal definition of ego, we were talking about ego before, is electronically generated observations. Electronically generated observations, that our ego comes from our experience of living in this simulation that we are living in. So I come from a math and science background, so I gravitate toward that view. And when I was studying A Course in Miracles in a group in the early 90s, and whatever I read that day, I just said, what he's saying is we're living in a simulation. So that's when I began to think more in that way. So is it possible that they're coming to show us that we are living in a simulation? Or maybe we're not, but do you have any thoughts on that, or other reasons, other purposes they have in coming in a more open way? Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Good to see you. If you mean by simulation something created externally in which we are to which we are subject. Absolutely not. If you mean by simulation something created in energy by us for our collective and individual experiment with spiritual purpose behind that, otherwise it would not be empowered in this way, then it stretches me in an uncomfortable way, because I am not a scientist in that way. But I would agree to your term simulation, but only if we recognize it as our own spiritual collective context for our individual expression to realize and manifest that collective goal.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I would agree with the latter of the two. And one of I write songs. One of my songs, I'm thinking of a line. We created a simulation and got lost in it. We got lost in our own simulation. Now, what our purpose was for that simulation, I think you've described that the way I think of it too. And that reminds me of something in A Course in Miracles, where supposedly this is Jesus talking, and he says, as soon as we entered down this wrong pathway, he didn't use the word simulation, the solution to that, the correction of it, was immediate by God. And my picture when I read that was, a tree structure, a branching that we see in a flow chart, that we entered into that simulation, which could be represented visually by this tree structure. And we have all these decision points. And as soon as we entered into that and forgot our true selves, God went through the computer simulation and made sure that every branch would bring us back to a remembering of who we really are. And that's what Jesus meant in A Course in Miracles, that as soon as we went down the wrong path, it was corrected. And we've been going through all this supposed time just to reach that end point where we will remember who we really are, and that we created the simulation and got lost in it. So I'm hoping that those beings, since that's what I believe is the case, that those beings you're talking about are going to help us to realize we are in a matrix. And the movie was to help us realize that too. So anyway.
You've said so much that I can't just agree to without qualification or clarification. First of all, the Matrix to me was horrifying. And it was horrifying because it was a lie that was so close to the truth that it was the most dangerous lie. And that is always why I can't just accept things that people say that are very close to my truth, but that I have to do some discerning and dig around a little to move it a little for it to be something I can affirm. And so I'm doing that here when I say to you that there's no lost and there's no wrong. It's that we are losing faith in how difficult, how confounding the process is with all of its variables, that we feel that we are lost. Lost is not possible because we're eternal and we started from one and we go to one. Lost is not possible. But when you have a lot of beings, people, incarnated in a certain time in history, and faith is being lost, and the context itself is being damaged, you're in a dark night. You're in a collective shadow. And to elevate from that collective shadow is to never have to live in that shadow again. Now, yes, we are in another war, but we see this war like no other war has been seen. So I want to suggest to you that there's no lost and there's no wrong. It's in our terms, it may not be ideal. We may have missed the mark and have to take the wrong bus. And a whole lot of people have gotten on the wrong bus, and the wrong bus has got a whole big tribe ringing playing their tambourines and making a lot of noise on the wrong bus and making other people doubt. All that's happening. That's where we are. But it concerns me that your models include how far we've gotten from ourselves, because the truth is, when you die, when I die, do you know how far we are from ourselves? An instant. We are an instant from ourselves. We have lost nothing. The fact that it's not yet manifest here, the fact that we are beaten up by the process along the way, and we grow from it and we learn from it, but it also dampens our spirits. No matter how spiritual we are, we have to strengthen and strengthen to keep that spiritual child. I don't mean child in a childish way, but that newness of spirit, that curiosity of spirit, that trust alive. Okay, that's a collective dark night. Humanity's been through several of them. And we could not now be reckoning with equality and all the diversity and equity and inclusion issues in such a frontal way had we not already been through the dark night of the Second World War, of all the slavery that happened and still happens. So this is a process. It's just that when you're in time, it's so damn slow, and there's so many ins and outs to it. And to include the least of us, when I say the least of us, I mean the least aware, the least willing of us. To include the least of us slows the people who are zooming along wanting to change the world. It slows it down to the collective, because until the collective is in spirit, we haven't realized the purpose.
Well, thank you. I'd just like to respond quickly that if this is a simulation, we are still our true selves. We have not, in fact, gone into a dark hole. This is a simulation. We are still our. That's what. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Oh, I agree with you. But only as we describe simulation. I don't like simulation, because a simulation is an artifice, and our whole purpose was to make something real, to give reality through our own beings to an idea, to a truth, to give reality to it, to test it and make it manifest. And a simulation is like an imitation.
All right, thank you. Tom Coates, did you want to wrap things up? Why don't you unmute yourself? Tom is down in South America.
Have a question, Dan, do we have a question there from Robert and maybe another one from Tammy? In the room?
Sure. Yeah, sure.
I want to take this question.
Okay. All right, Tammy.
No,
Robert. Well, Robert.
I don't know if I want to take, I hadn't connected yet. I know, Robert, I want to take your question, and I welcome your question. I just don't know what it is yet.
Robert has just an announcement. Is that that's
okay?
Okay. All right. Tammy.
Hi. Can't hear you.
I'm sorry. There we go.
There we go.
Normally loud.
Hi.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for joining us and sharing with us this morning. I guess I wanted to speak to the oneness and totality that I have experienced on numerous occasions, where there's just like no not knowing. And then trying to integrate that and embody that has been really interesting. But one of the things I wanted to touch on, because it's really been on me lately, is memory. You know, what is all this memory I'm having or we're having, right? Like, you know, the past lives and coming into, you know, the past life work. The way I'm experiencing it is it's all me right now. And we're just coming into this memory. And it seems to me, for me, that the real work is like, okay, now look in the mirror. Like if you had a hard time 10 years ago looking yourself in the eyes and telling yourself you love yourself, well, go to totality and you are everything that has ever existed, including every single other being. And then I like the disco ball because the reflections are always showing us. And, you know, I'm experiencing, to me, it has literally felt like my fibers that hold my flesh on my bones being removed in my present moment of holy, oh, okay, I have to stand still for this and just release that right now. And you know, every time that happens to me, I absolutely know it's touching every living thing on this planet. And I'm assuming that's what a lot of people are waking up to, and compassion. In the last couple of months, stillness, like utter stillness, to be able to hold just even the levels that I've been remembering, have brought forth the most profound compassion, especially for myself. You know, I have truly been loving humanity and showing up in service for a really long time as my own awakening has been happening. But the most popular word for me, especially in the past couple of months, and I feel like I've been tapping into the collective for so long now that I really do feel it. And I really feel called to just hold myself as still as possible and be as nurturing and open to any framework that serves me in that moment of my own expansion, and hold on loosely, because there were some frameworks I held on real tight, and in my not wanting to let go, I suffered. And it prevented, the way I'm experiencing it, it prevented my own further expansion. You know, so to me, this is very real, because in the spiral of it all, you know, and it seems to me, I guess I'm going to get back to one of the things that's actually I would like your take on. The past life regressions or memories coming in and all of that. The way I'm experiencing it is all right now. And if you have access to it, you have access to it. And it's kind of challenging to even really realize just how absolutely extraordinarily magnificent we really are. And we really are part of, I think it's divine intelligence with grace and love. And it's just an ever ongoing process. That's where I am in my process right now. But the memories that I'm having, and I believe lots of others are, I guess I'm speaking to what is your take on past lives? I think we're tapping into our other aspects that are all right now, and we keep embodying those, and maybe there, you know, I've seen a lot of amazing work happen with people, myself including, with that, and being able to understand maybe it helps release some things that are preventing. I'll speak for myself. I've released some things that just continue and continue and continue to remove all judgment, you know, And I'll just leave it at that. I would love to hear you speak on any or all of that. I appreciate it. And again, thank you so much. And Tom and Isabel, we all wish you the absolute best for your marriage. We love you. Thank you, Tom.
Okay, first of all, whoever's monitoring, do I have a few minutes? Tell me where we are in time, because I really want to respond, but I don't want to.
Yeah, we're a little past 12, but go ahead and respond to that.
We can expand time here. No problem.
All right. Is that you, Tom?
That's me. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Well, let's see. Would you become, I love looking at your face, Tom, but would the person who I was just speaking with in the blue dress, with the beautiful necklace and the beautiful spirit, thank you. I want to talk to you.
Her name is Tammy.
Tammy? Thank you, Tammy.
Yes, absolutely.
I heard it, but I started listening to all you said in such a deep way, I lost that. Okay, let's look at Tammy. Bye, Tom. Okay. You danced for me, for all of us. You went like this.
Yeah.
Okay.
It kind of feels like
All right,
that. To
right.
me. Yeah.
I want to address that because it connects with the question you asked.
Oh, great.
This is the DNA.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel it.
Right. It's where mudras come from. Okay. It's mudras in the Indian tradition. And I don't presume to know a lot about mudras. I just recognize the same vibration. So one of these is your spiritual identity. One of the double helix, one of those wave patterns is your spiritual identity. We go like this, thinking that everybody's wave pattern looks like that. Okay? Really, everyone's wave pattern is profoundly unique. It's your spiritual identity. It has all your life experience in it.
Yeah.
And what you do when you incarnate is you match it at the material level with a reflection of it so that the same wave pattern is duplicated in the world of form. Okay? So you have the first strand of the helix is your spirit and all your life experience for it that you've ever had.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then you're being born, and over the period you're gestating, and over the period of 9 months, you are magnetizing what you need to duplicate that pattern in the world of form. And then you are born, so that not just reaching up into the abstract, energetic, spiritual realm gives you access to all you've ever been and all you've ever known, but it's in your body.
Mm-hmm.
It's in your body. So everyone does not need to access past lives. Some people do. They do because it's in their path of inquiry. Whether it's access to become conscious material or not, doesn't matter. Everybody is carrying it around. It is them. It is their body. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And in any moment that it's needed, it either comes out in a big wave, like you get a whole story for a life, or you get a segment of a life, or you get a déjà vu, or you get a moment where you go, I know, but I don't know how I know, but I know this. Because you're carrying it all, and at any level of knowing, it can come about. So go ahead.
I'm just curious. Okay, I appreciate this. I really do. So spontaneous memory, if that's what you want to call it. In the past, 6 or 7 years, I called it altered states. But I mean, and then in the past like 2 years, I actually tried psychedelics, and I realized, oh, okay, that's what was kind of happening in my altered states, and I didn't realize that. But I'm of the opinion at this time that there's no way I can conceive this stuff. This isn't stuff that's in books. I mean, I literally am experiencing totality. Like, I mean, totality. And there's no books. I think language has it's been great, but it fails us miserably trying to truly explain this stuff. So is it, how, or do you have any input on how that becomes unlocked? Is it our frequency changing? Because initially I had a really big experience that was 8 or 9 weeks nonstop. Like the equivalence of what I would find out several years later of being on a large dose of psychedelics. And I've never been able to understand, like, how did that just happen? Like, it just was like, boom, you know, I'm like, okay, I'm afraid to drive right now or talk to anybody because I think they might put me in a rubber room. But I knew.
You became it.
I knew that this was my essence. I knew this was what I would call a sacred holy grail of an experience. I didn't need to be committed. I was more sane than I probably ever had been in my life, even though it wouldn't have presented that way. What is your take on how that even happens? And then it happened again last spring. So it's like, I don't even know. I'm curious. Like, I don't seem to be able to totally invoke it, but I also get just random spontaneous memory that I can promise you I am not learned in. There's no way I could understand or even make this story up if I hadn't actually experienced it. And I have been.
Have a question. You don't have a question. You have answers. And it's just accustoming yourself to the fact that you have aligned. You have aligned and are embodying and are experiencing and want to communicate something that you really don't have a question about because you have answers.
I think it's memory of the DNA in me, though, right? Like, that's
doesn't matter.
I don't know. We don't even have to know. Okay.
No, it's you. No.
It's really interesting.
You do know. You do know. You do have to know. You are knowing.
Yes.
But what you're trying to do here is put it in a context
box or a
that
framework.
you had before.
Exactly.
You're trying to take this experience that is as original as you are and as real can be and interpret it or define it in relation to something. Don't. You have it. You are describing, experiencing, communicating direct experience. If you have misconceptions anywhere in it, it will reveal itself within the process. If you have to name it a little ways down the line, you'll be as inept maybe as I am at trying to talk about the misconceptions of spirituality. I can only say to you that you have found this alignment, okay? And your body is vital enough to handle the entire process. So there you are. Some of us, our bodies can't do all that, so we do more of it in spirit. But you're bringing this in through your body as well as a whole embodied physical discovery, because that's your path. If anybody else was supposed to do that, then they would have that kind of body and have done it at a younger age, okay, or at the right time for them. You're doing exactly what gives you access to all of this. Be with it, live it, figure out how to be who you are in the world with it, and then it will settle in a way that you know, I am that.
Be still and know. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
All right, Tom, did you want to?
Yeah.
Okay.
I have a very unstable internet connection. Robert, do you have an announcement of some kind?
Well, Robert has one for the room.
When we're done.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not for the.
When we're finished, yeah.
Okay. Well, I wanted to say, first of all, Elia, this has absolutely been really, really special and wonderful. When you and I spoke last March, I believe, you asked me what I wanted you to talk about. And I said, well, I think we'd just like to hear what whatever your passion is most focused on right now. And I'm so glad that I asked for that, because I can't imagine we would have gotten anything half as good as this if I try to focus you in a direction that I wanted rather than what you want. This has been really, really special, and a testament to why the book you wrote in 2000, published in 2000, I know you spent many years on it before that, is really one of the great spiritual works of all time, in my opinion. I want to announce to the group here that Elia also has a musical that she's been working on for a number of years, and that musical, as I understand it, is scheduled to open off Broadway sometime in the early part of 2024. Is that right, Elia?
Oh, how I wish it were true. And from your mouth to God's ears. I worked on it for more than a decade.
Mm-hmm.
And at every stage received the support that was needed. We workshopped at the Guthrie Theater. We did our readings in LA in a theater. Capital came to us from people who saw the value of it, and we developed it to the full. And then the individual who was financing it for us to take it further passed away unexpectedly. And so I am not, and so it clearly is not the moment that it's going to find its way to the stage. And it's, a moment that threw me back into saying, into thinking about teaching again. So I can only say to you, I have a musical. It's gone through fire already, and it's been tested, and it was ready to, start pulling the team together. And this very dear and beloved friend, who became a friend through this process, was not a friend before, but passed, and I feel sure that nothing has gone awry.
Well, let's hope it continues in some form or fashion, because it sounds like to me that what you're working on could be the Hamilton of awakening spirit for
I hope so. I hope so, Tom. It's meant for kids and families, because I want the foundation to be set, and it's a joyous piece. And I hope so. We just take it as it unfolds.
Well, again, I want to thank you so much for making yourself available for our group. We've been blessed throughout our history to have wonderful presenters, and none of them is better than what we've heard today. I can tell you that in all sincerity. So thank you so much.
Thank you for
we have among our audience today and online, I see, is PMH Atwater, who is the world's most prolific author on the subject of near-death experiences, and is going to be our speaker in September to talk about her memoir. I see my internet is fading now, so if you can't hear me, PMH, good to see you. We look forward to seeing you next month. You're muted. You're muted.
Not now.
Oh, there you go. There you go. Thank you for joining us. I know you'll agree with me. It was worth it to take the time, was it not?
Oh yes. Well, I couldn't get into the first half because I couldn't get on. Suddenly, all the papers and codes and it
right.
work. But what I keep hearing from the people saying it's a full-blown near-death experience where you get it all in the same package. Here it is, what you've done, what you're here for, and get it all.
Right. And we look forward to hearing from you next month. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Excuse me?
Thank you.
I think that concludes our meeting for today, and I'm coming to you from without COVID, we probably would not have Zoom, or we would not have learned to use it as we have. And so I'm coming to you from Colombia today, from a place called Finlandia, in a beautiful retreat site, and that Isabel and her friend have been conducting for the last 12 days, and we have had people. Wilma is in Northern California, further north than you are, Elia, and we have had Tom Hansen from Minnesota, and Ann and Ray from Raleigh, North Carolina. So we're really blessed to be able to use Zoom to expand our reach. And I think that's it for the online portion of the meeting, unless I think that the notice that Robert has is for those in the room. So I'm going to close out the meeting from here, and I would advise those who are still online, if you haven't already, that you can make donations to our group through our website at richmondions.com. There's a PayPal function on there, and we appreciate anything that anybody wants to donate, because we subsist only on donations. And goodbye, and we'll see you next month, and appreciate the support of everybody. I'd like to give a big hand for Elia from all of us before we close out here, if we can. So everybody unmute and do that.
Thank you, Elia.
Thank you.
So I'm going to end the meeting for everyone on Zoom. So we'll see you next month with PMH at Water. All right.